Hello chaps and chapettes, and welcome to a special edition of Board Games That Everybody Should... Yes, special because this is a Kickstarter video, and this is the Kickstarter which is coming. It's called Chartered the Golden Age, in which players are merchants in Amsterdam in the 1600s, and they are creating enterprises. You're going to be buying land, you're going to be building warehouses, and you're going to be trading stock like gold and silver, tea and coffee, and opium. This is a prototype version of the game. Okay, so everything you see in this video is of a prototype quality, so art and components may change as time goes on. So that's just to forewarn you. Also, if you want to check out more about this Kickstarter, there is a link in the show notes below, and there will be a link at the end of the video with the credits. So without further ado, let me show you how to play this game, because the rulebook is very small like this. Let me show you how to set the game up, and then I'll give you my first impressions. The first thing you need to do is place out the board into the middle of the table so everyone can see it and reach it easily. Next to that, you'll place the stock track. This will keep track of the values of each of the 9 different enterprises. Talking of enterprises, you'll place out these 9 different decks of cards. Each is a different enterprise. Each deck will have its own stock token and warehouse, labelled with the resource that the enterprise is enterprising in. The other deck of cards contains buildings and level cards. You will shuffle this large deck together and then place out 3 of the top cards so everyone can see next to the board. Somewhere on the table, you'll put out all the money and all of the warehouses. Or you may do like I've done, keep it all in the box. Each player will receive 2 flags of their player colour. They'll also collect 400 guilder, and each player will be dealt 10 of the building cards. If a player has 3 or more level cards in their hand, they must discard it and draw another 10 cards. Once this is done, all discarded cards go back into the deck and get reshuffled. You choose a starting player and you're ready to go. So a quick overview of the game. On a player's turn, you're going to have a choice of one of 2 actions. The first action is you can buy a building card, which will give you a plot of land in Amsterdam. The second action is you can then build in Amsterdam. You build a warehouse, you'll place it on the plot, and you'll either create an enterprise or you'll expand an enterprise. You'll then be given the chance to buy shares and stocks in these enterprises and be able to sell them. You may even want to become the director of an enterprise. The game will continue until there are no more warehouses to be placed out on the board, and then you'll sell all your stocks and shares, and the player with the most guilder is the winner. So that's an overview of the game. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of these 2 actions. Buying a building card action is a simple case of taking either one of the 3 face-up cards in the open market or the face-down card from the top of the draw deck. You'll add this card to your hand and it will cost you 50 guilder, which you'll need to pay to the bank. Now, if you've taken one of the face-up cards, you'll need to replace that with the top card from the draw deck. There's no limit to the amount of cards that you can have in your hand, but you're going to need to be careful because at the end of the game, you're going to be penalized for each building card you still have. If the draw deck runs out and the open market runs out, that is it. There are no more cards that can be bought. You do not take the discard deck and you do not shuffle it and make a new deck. That's it. There is no more cards. That's now the end of your turn. The alternative action that you can do is called build. To build, it's a simple case of play one of your cards from your hand and then take a warehouse and place that warehouse on the space indicated by the card that you've played. In this case, number 15. You will then earn some money, and then you can buy and sell up to 2 stock, or maybe even buy out the company and place your flag in the headquarters. Now, there are 3 different ways that this can work. You can create an enterprise, you can expand an enterprise, and you can merge enterprises. Let me break that down for you. The creation of an enterprise happens when a player plays a build card, and that build card allows them to place a factory on that space, but it's not touching another factory. But also, that factory needs to be 3 spaces away from an existing enterprise. So in this case, the 57 card would not be sufficeable, whereas a 58 card would be better. The player would then choose one of the headquarter enterprises from the ones that are remaining, and then place the headquarters of that enterprise on top of that warehouse. They then also receive 2 other warehouses which they can place either side of their headquarters. In this case, this would be illegal because there is now only a distance of 2 spaces between the 2 existing enterprises. So this warehouse would have to go here. They take the stock token of that enterprise and add it to the stock chart on the 30 guilders mark, and you get to collect the value of that enterprise, so in this case 30 guilders from the bank. And they also receive a free stock card which they can put in their hand or place in front of them. The second way a build action works is by expanding. So if a player played this 57 card, that means that they can place a warehouse on the 57 space. This is touching the silver enterprise, which means that the silver enterprise expands by 1. You'll increase the stock value of silver by 1, taking it to 40 guilders, meaning that you will then collect 40 guilders from the bank. Another way to expand an enterprise is to play a level card instead. This is a second level, which means that you get to add a warehouse on a second level on any of the warehouses that you wish. So let's place this one here. And adding a second level will increase the value of that enterprise by 2, meaning that you'd collect 60 guilders. If you were to play a higher level, you need to make sure that there is a lower level below it. So in this case, for a third level, I need to place it on top of a second level. And for each level, it's another number. So for the third level, it would be increased by 3, 4 for 4th level, and 5 for a 5th level. Another way an enterprise can go up in a level is if a player plays a numbered card and it happens to be on the space where there is already a warehouse. In this case, this would happen if, when you remember, this silver enterprise was created, we had 2 free warehouses and we placed them here and here. So this is just a case of the 59 and that going on top. And on the stock chart, the silver will be affected differently because it was not a level card, it was a build card. It only ever goes up 1 space. And not to forget, our player needs to pick up 100 guilder as well. So the third thing a build action can do is cause a merger between 2 or 3 enterprises. This player plays a 56, which places this warehouse in the middle, connecting the T and the silver enterprises. The player that took the build action will add 10 guilders to the enterprise of their choice, so either the T or the silver, so in this case, the silver. All players are now obliged to sell any stock cards of that enterprise, and they sell them for the stock value. So 40 guilders a piece for 2 would give you 80 guilders. And if you were the owner of that enterprise because you had your flag in its warehouse, that means that you get 4 times the value for each stock card that you have. All the stock cards would return to their deck, and then the value of the smaller company will be added to the larger company. 1, 2, 3, 4, 140 guilders for silver, and then the T is removed. You place the stock token back, you also remove the T headquarters, and you return that as well. And hopefully someone might create another new enterprise and it'll be tea again. And we all like a cup of tea, don't we? So there is also the possibility that a player can add a warehouse and it will merge 3 companies together. If this happens, that player chooses 2 of them and merges them first. So maybe the coffee gets merged into the silver, and then they merge the remaining 2. So maybe the gems now gets merged into the silver as well. Now, if you do the build action, you get an optional free action afterwards. You can buy and sell up to 2 different stock, or you can buy out your company by placing a flag in it. If you buy or sell stock, the stock needs to be of a value of 50 guilders or more, and the price that you buy and sell it is marked on the stock chart. Or you may decide to buy out a company. For your first company that you buy, it will cost you 200 guilders and you place your flag in the headquarters. For the second one, if you buy one later on, that will cost you 400 guilders. Now remember that if you own the company, the value of your stock for that is going to be 4 times the value of what it's marked on the stock chart. In the event of on your turn, you cannot play any building cards because you can't construct any new enterprises and you can't expand any enterprises, and also you've got no money to buy any more build cards. You are going to have to sell one of your stock cards to give you the money so you can buy a building card, and that's the end of your turn. So play will continue around the table, each player either buying a plot of land or building a warehouse, which will then allow them to buy some stock or maybe invest in an enterprise. Once the last warehouse piece has been placed out on the board and there are no more left, the game will end immediately, and that's when you will sell off all of your stock that you have in your hand. You'll do this together. You'll start with the lowest amount, so like the tea here for 30 guilders. So for each tea that I have, I will get 30 guilders, and then the coffee, then the pepper, working our way up. If we are the owner of a particular enterprise, so in this case silk, don't forget, when you liquidate, which is what you're doing now, you're going to get 4 times the value of your stock. So I've got 2 silk here, so I'm going to get 4 times 100 guilder for each of those. And then you'll have to pay a fee. For each building card you still have in your hand, you're going to need to pay 20 guilder back to the bank. That's when you add up all of your guilder that you have, and the player with the most is the winner. Therapeutic. So what are my first impressions of this prototype? You must remember that this is a prototype. I've played it twice, and therefore my first impressions are not going to be a representation of the actual final game. So apart from the very dour gentleman on the box and the very kind of looks like it came from the 90s look on the board and things and the cards, this is quite an enjoyable game. It has that kind of same Euro mechanic feel as you would get if you were playing Ticket to Ride or New York 1901. But unlike those games, you're actually playing for money, so this game is very heavily steeped in economy. But it does feel a lot more like 1901 due to the fact that it's area control and you're building buildings and trying to make things bigger and better. Now, I've played the game twice. I've played a 3-player game and a 5-player game. And they felt slightly different. Because both games used the same board and the same amount of components, the 3-player game felt a tad too long, but I've been informed that there's going to be another map on the back side of the board for 2 and 3 players, which should be a bit smaller, which is speed up the speed of the game. The 5-player game was a lot more cutthroat because there are more players buying more stock, and the stock seems to run out pretty quickly. There was a moment when everyone started working on this one enterprise and expanding it and getting more and more money from it. And then it came to a point where people started buying the shares in that enterprise. And in one entire round, all the shares were bought up before it came back to the player that started this gross economic growth in this enterprise. The rules, as you've seen, are pretty straightforward and simple. Both games that I played started very slowly with it, like, oh, what should I do? Because it's just like a big open board and, you know, you didn't know what you were doing. But after a while, when players got, you know, used to the actions, the game flow went really fast. Even with the 5-player game, I'd quite happily say that in the 5-player game, there were times when you couldn't leave the table to go to PP because it would already be your turn before you got back. So this game has some kind of like set collection because you're trying to collect numbers which are close to the enterprises that you want to build and invest in and maybe even own. Watching the open market of cards that are available is very important because as soon as like a level card comes out, they're pretty powerful cards and they're, you know, they give you a big chunk of money pretty quickly. So those those are kind of gone very, very fast. So again, like Ticket to Ride, should you just draw from the cards that are there, or maybe you should get that top face down card, because hopefully it's a level card, which is a great bonus. Again, it does feel like a traditional kind of card game. Which card should I play and when should I play it? You know, should you play this card which is going to merge these two companies together, or should you wait and play it later when you actually own the bigger of the two? You know, again, should you make this enterprise big and so people like know that you're making this big enterprise, and then you're actually going to buy it at some stage and own it and then have big shares? And that end of game moment when you've got a handful of cards that you have to pay out on, it kind of stings a bit, but you know, it could have stung a bit more. So like in game, you're trying to think whether it is best to buy a bucket load of cards at the beginning, a bucket load of cards in the middle, or just like sporadically buy them throughout the game. So this game is really an economy game at the end of the day. Which should you invest in, which should you buy in, what stock should you buy and sell at the right time? It is a nice kind of puzzle and react off of all the other players and what they're doing. It's very mathy, especially when it gets to the end of game scoring. The game has this wonderful tactile feel, these lovely warehouse tile, Lego I'm going to call it, that you stack on top of each other and you put together. It works really well. It doesn't move very much during the game. Although the drawback with this prototype, as you can see, was the numbers were on the spaces, and as soon as you cover up the spaces, you can't see the number. But that's going to be fixed in the final version. The numbers are going to be placed adjacent on the final version of the game. So there you go. That's my first impressions of Chartered, the Golden Age. It's a very economy game. It's very area control. It's very set collectory. If you like those type of games, this game should interest you as well. So you can check out this game when it comes to Kickstarter. There'll be a link in the show notes below, and there'll also be a link at the end of this video in the credit section that you can click on and take you to the Kickstarter page. And if you have any questions, you can always write them in the comments as well, and I will do my best to answer them. So there you have it. I hope this video has pointed you in the direction whether this is a game for you or not. And if you've liked this video, give it a like. If you know someone that might appreciate this game, maybe share this video with them. You can go to boardgameseverybodyshould.com and check out everything that I'm up to, or the music that I'm creating, or the videos that the games that I'm reviewing. And you can also go to my Patreon and help sponsor me on this by donating a bit of money, maybe get yourself some promos and maybe a soundtrack. So that's all from me. I'll say ciao for now, and remember to please play nicely with each other because just sitting at the table.